Hey everyone, welcome to Murder Moose, part of the Slash and Cast podcast network.
Oh, you got it today. Holy
I got
shit, dude. That is intense. You intensed my face.
I know. I'm like doing what I'm supposed to and like talking on time. And it's amazing what happens when you're not like recovering from the super plague or whatever the fuck happened and killed me. And
you know what? Like, I'm glad you have recovered, by the way. But I was going to say, I was just telling my daughter, like, I got to go murder a moose at 8 tonight, sweetie. So you got to, and she is just so unimpressed by me. She just sits there and goes, she's like,
Dad, you're lame.
She doesn't give a shit. It's hilarious.
Because no matter what, especially kids her age, because she's like 6, right? So she's like,
a few months away from 7.
Yeah, she but like you could be like, I gotta go blow Elon Musk and then like do like business deals with Bill Gates, and she'd be like pshaw. Like she wouldn't understand she doesn't understand the power of a murder moose. That's all.
Well, I was like, no, I actually have to go and murder a moose.
She's like, whatever you say, Daddy, you crazy.
No,
you crazy, Daddy.
I was like, she knows I'm just a weird guy.
She knows that her daddy, just like me, is a crazy man, and that's why we're buddies. So tonight we were supposed to, or this week's episode, we were supposed to be doing the thing with Dead in Santa Carla, and I figured out over the weekend, or at the end of last week, that in my haze of like Andy had messaged me on Facebook and was like, Messenger was like, are we doing it the 5th? And I'm like, or the 12th? And I'm like, I never responded to him because the day he sent that to me, I was literally like sitting in a bathtub of cold water trying not to get my temperature to make my brain like overcook. And so we're doing that this weekend with them. And me and the Josh are going to talk about an older movie, which I'm actually kind of surprised Josh's response to what he's after watching it. So we are doing Black Christmas tonight, but we'll get into that in a little bit. The original Black Christmas. Now that there's,
I had only seen the 2006 or some whatever version before. I haven't seen the new one. It would have been actually better if I had a tiny bit more time and I could have watched the new one, so we could have had like an actual discussion about all 3 of them. That would have been like, I know, man, but like, you know, just to round table it a bit and get like a perspective. I really wish I had time to do my homework on this one, but I'm very glad that I didn't like this one, to be honest, because we have been seeing eye to eye on a lot of movies. So I really want to hear how it's different this time.
Yeah, it's cool. And it's something that like, I think that this movie is it's contextually very odd compared to like modern horror movies. It's like, if you start going back in time and like, shit, man, go watch one of the most disjointed horror movies I've ever seen. Is like The Mummy, the original Mummy with Boris Karloff and everything like that. The movie's like pacing and like tone and everything like that was so far off from what a modern horror movie is.
Well, I love how they feed you everything on a plate. It's like, we are here. Yeah. And they show like the sign of where they're at for like fucking 35 seconds. And then they cut to the interior. And it's like, okay, I get it. I know where the fuck we are. Like, holy shit.
I have to laugh though, because I don't know if I told you this. I watched Wolf Cop recently.
Oh, dude!
And
you've seen my signed Wolf Cop, like
action figure.
Well, have you seen the other signed thing that they sent me too? It's so sexy.
I think so.
No, just wait.
But the difference, the thing that that's pretty dope.
He's laying on his own skin.
He's a sexy Wolf Cop. Yeah, but. The thing about Wolf Cop that it reminds me of Black Christmas is it's another one of those movies, and I think Andy and Brian have pointed this out on Dead in Santa Carla. It's a Canadian movie that tries to act like it's an American movie.
Canadian
And
movies do that all the time, dude.
it's like, but then like they're like in America, but then they're playing hockey and they're saying A the whole time, and you're like, oh my god, guys, oh my god, being Canadian isn't that big of a deal, guys. You don't have to try to act like you're Canadian. I mean American, and then when you try to act like you're American, don't play hockey because no one in America plays hockey. I mean they do, but
I love
it's
those movies with all of my heart, dude. They are
Wolf Cop's like that too, man. Wolf Cop's like,
Wolf Cop
yeah.
is the best.
Oh, hey, I'm gonna go pick up some Timmy's, and I'm gonna go get this half and half, and I'm gonna go do some maple syrup.
They
and
do
then
it
like,
on purpose.
oh, but
it's full.
But
on, it's slapstick.
But I'm in Omaha. It's like no, you're not. So we're gonna So we're doing Deadly Games, which is basically French Santa Claus Home Alone next week.
I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah. I put it on the other day before I realized what I had done with my miscommunication. And all I have to tell you is a preview, Josh. The little kid in this movie has the most wicked mullet I've ever seen in the history of wicked mullets. And I don't know why this kid has the most wicked mullet of all time, but the mullet is pretty goddamn wicked.
When was this movie from?
It's from 1990.
Perfect. Yeah, that's mullet.
But it's a weird thing, like, right, where we're talking about this movie being French. So you have to go, what were the fashion trends of France, 30 years ago? But it's funny comparing it because a lot of people call it Home Alone with Santa Claus, and Home Alone came out in 1990. So it's like, it's funny comparison. And I watched like probably 10 minutes of it before, and I'm like, wow, this movie is ridiculous, and it's going to be a talk, and I'm going to really, really enjoy it when we do. So, you ready? I mean, anything else you want to talk about before we go dive into Black Christmas? I mean, how you're, like, anything in life that is worth talking about?
Life is shit right now, so let's talk about movies.
Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, we were talking about the 1974. I don't know, Josh might disagree, but I would kind of at this point with two remakes, you can call Black Christmas an iconic movie.
Yeah, this is
or a classic, yeah.
Super classic for sure. And if it's got two remakes, but they're not, well, I don't know. I haven't seen the newest one, but are they very, very similar? Because there's just a lot of people yelling, hello, hello, in this movie.
Josh, you have to realize the brilliance of Mrs. Mack, because Mrs. Mack may be the best horror character of all time.
Oh, she's amazing. I love her so much, but I don't know, dude, man.
The character, okay, there's a couple things about this movie that are pretty clear right up front. One, there's violence in it, but it's not very much. Like, you don't see, like, you see after anything. Effects.
Yeah, no, you only see they cut away and don't give you any satisfaction in this movie, and that's a big reason why I'm just like, meh, this movie fucking sucks.
It's the 70s, dude. Like, this came out in 74, which is the same year Texas Chainsaw came out, right?
Yeah, but they showed shit in that movie.
No, they don't. What? They don't show anything in Texas Chainsaw.
Oh yeah, I
Texas
guess.
Chainsaw has no violence almost at all. Like, no violence at all. Texas is all about, like, the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And,
no, that's what I was gonna say.
And
it's more like horrific though than this. Like, this movie was like drawn out and boring as fuck, and then some shit happened, and then people yelled on the phone, and I was bored. And
dude, I still think that the body sitting in the attic with a plastic bag over its head,
literally in the front window,
entire
going, hey
movie,
guys, where are you? I'm right here. You guys are fucking idiots.
That movie, that alone is more horrific than anything that happened in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like, that crazy dude in the attic was fucked up for sure. Like, he was really messed up person. But Texas Chainsaw guy was way more messed up in my eyes.
I mean, so Leatherface is like,
I just call him the Texas Chainsaw guy, and I have right there.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I laugh, and I laugh about this all the time. I say that Texas Chainsaw Massacre is basically like an home invasion film where you feel bad for the people who are being home invaded
In a reverse.
because well, think about this. Watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The every single person that Leatherface kills breaks into his house
Yeah.
besides the wheelchair dude.
I know. I don't
Every
understand
single
why
one of them.
everyone is fucking breaking into this guy's house. Why do you want to go
Yeah.
into that house? Like,
Especially Texas, dude.
yeah.
Texas is where all the crazies are. That's like where all the gun-toting lunatics in America live. And
That's what I
start
feel like
breaking
right
in-
now in Alberta, man. What I feel like everyone's going crazy in Alberta. We're like the Texas of Canada right now.
So the violence you said, like the plastic bag thing, because they don't show it. You just see the after effects of that.
It looks
really
good. Like
yeah.
I liked a lot of the characters in this movie for real. Like
Yeah.
the boozy lady is hilarious. Yeah. She's so
Dude, I love her.
She is my favorite and like of like all time. And there's a lot of wicked characters actually in this movie, but I don't understand. Well, it was a laugh, and I love how just far technology has come because of that whole like sequence of you gotta keep him on the phone longer, and he's running around. It's so ridiculous by today's standards, obviously.
Yeah.
But just the whole like yelling and how they the bad acting and stuff, it just obviously
dude, it's hysterical because the cops in this movie, all besides the one cop, are so incredibly dense.
Yeah,
it's amazing. And
literally the worst cops I've ever seen in anything ever. And this wins. They are the worst. The best. The one guy at the desk just rolling his eyes at everything. What, you really want me to go and do something? I guess. And fuck.
He's so stupid because they're sitting there and the one chick gives him the number for their house is fellatio. And he's like, okay, I would have write this down.
But then the other guys laugh for like a half an hour about it. I'm like, my wife and I look at each other and we're like, was that funny back then? Like,
I think it's the fellatio part's funny. It's the stupidity of the cop that's so funny there. The guy fell for this like mean. But the best part is like with that whole thing, and we'll go through this movie more better like at some point here. But and it's from 1974. If you think us spoiling this is bad, you've lost your mind because this movie is literally almost 50 years old. It's like 46 years old. When the girl that gave him the fellatio number, they're trying to report their friend missing, and she sits there and opens up a beer in the middle of the police station and starts chugging. And you're just like, oh, no one in this movie gives a fuck. There's a dude that like later on, every single scene in the police station is like insanity because like there's a dude sitting there who shoots a cop in the ass with a shotgun for some reason because like he was on his property. And you're like, what is happening in this goddamn town? You have that. You have everyone's like, oh my God, freaking out about everything except for this girl missing. Also, another thing that Canada should have realized, no one in this country gives a fuck until someone's been missing for about 3 weeks. Like they're like this whole movie, like this girl disappears and then
dismissed the entire fucking time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
whatever. She's just off with her boyfriend. Fuck off. Get out of here.
She goes missing like the first 20 minutes of the movie, and the rest of the movie is the next day. And everyone's like, well, where is she? And they're like,
but how do you not hear a guy like making monkey noises and yelling at you on the phone from your same fucking house? He's being like,
that house was pretty massive though.
Yeah,
but
that one dude was sleeping upstairs. He's like, what's with all the yelling? Like he heard it.
Yeah. Well, dude, also, there's a couple things.
We're just jumping all over.
All these girls were drunk as fuck.
Yeah.
One. And two, a lot of them were like leaving for Christmas and stuff, right? But I also have to say the fashion in this movie is the fashion in the Black Christmas is amazing.
Oh yeah,
like,
they all look great.
the one dude who like was dating the girl that goes missing at the beginning is walking around in the biggest fur coat
I
I've ever
know,
seen in my
but he
entire
looks
life.
so good though. I'm like, who
He
is this guy?
does.
He looks awesome with his
Well,
Fonzie freaking locks too. Yeah, he was.
so they have these dudes in this movie that have like these just so like they look like they're like Led Zeppelin cover band singers. Like they have this long, gorgeous hair, and everyone's just like, okay. The one that makes me laugh though is the house mother is always wearing these ridiculous clothing and ridiculous hats while she's running around the house with bottles of sherry hidden everywhere. Like she's pulling sherry out of books and toilets.
Yeah, it was.
And just,
She's the best.
she
She's my.
died. Wait, she died way too quickly in
I
this movie. I think
know. Everyone that got
they
stolen up to the fucking attic, it was kind of everything was a buzzkill to me in this movie, man. I was like, it could have, like, that's why it's been remade so much, because it's like, oh man, you took out all the fucking best parts of a horror movie in my eyes.
So like this movie, like we talked about, is made in '74. So like the graphic violence that like kind of started with kind of got big and like kind of notorious in the '80s, right? Like the original Friday the 13th had some pretty gruesome kills in it, and like even stuff like before that. But like you go back to like the '70s, not many of the horror movies in the '70s are actually gory. Not many of them. They happen. Like Dawn of the Dead has some shit in it.
Yeah, but I'm looking through it through eyes like now, and I really, I was not watching it through the eyes of someone then. So like I took a step back and like had a mini conversation with my wife about it, and I was like, yeah, but I guess like a lot of that stuff really would have like been insane. I'm so desensitized. I've seen way too much, and my expectations for a good time now are like insane for like production value and stuff, right? So but like I love indie, and if I look at it more in those type of eyes, and
the movie didn't have a budget. I mean, there's like, it's almost like it
still has all those fucking faults of like the bad acting and stuff too, though. Like
like it takes place in the sorority house. It takes place in the police station, and then like the symposium or whatever it's called, where the guy plays his piano.
Yeah.
And that dude sucks at piano. Why are you going to college? And he says like talking he's been at a school for like 7 years to play piano.
That reminds me of my favorite thing this movie does, and it overused it, and sometimes it didn't use it right. But the times that I use it all the time. The extreme ultra zoom that happens in that scene to show his frustration on his face. They do it to like go into the window of the cop shop for no reason, and like, but it's such a. I just love it. It's like an old school technique, but it looks so cool, and they I don't know. I loved it. Every time I saw it, I was like, oh, it's so good.
I also appreciate the restraint of this movie because of they don't ever really show the killer. Like you see his eyeball, like
they do a good job with the lighting on him for sure, and like through cracks.
Speaking
and stuff.
of which, how does the stupid pregnant girl, she sees his eyeball, sees the killer's eyeball, and still bludgeons her boyfriend to death with a fucking goddamn fire poker?
There's a lot of stupidity in this fucking movie.
I mean, it's a horror movie, like. Yeah. So like the whole like they told her to leave the house, right? And she's like, okay, and then proceeds to go back up into the fucking house because I told you the fucking crazy person's in the house.
His deliverance, and because it was from that asshole, no one's gonna listen to him. He's just like, okay, now listen here, missy. Don't even fucking think about not listening to me right now. Don't think about it. Fuck you. Don't leave. Wait, leave the fucking house. That's how he said it. It's like, you don't say that. You say it in a nice way, so they're like, hey, you know what? You got to leave the house now. Just listen.
But John Saxon, who plays Ken Fuller,
everyone's so aggressive.
He's like the only good cop out of all the cops in the movie. Yes. You'll know John from like, he was the dad. He was Nancy's dad in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, he was great.
Is the only one worth listening to, and he's the one telling her to get out of the house, and she still doesn't listen to him. And because he's the only cop who's not an idiot, he's the one who's like bringing up the fellatio thing to the dude, and he's like, "You're an idiot."
Just
Um,
everyone's deliverance of their lines was so
yeah.
like aggressive.
Well, yeah. Well, it's weird. Like, there's this weird thing, and I'm not sure if they're doing it to cover up the acting. So the pregnant girl who was like the final girl is got this like French accent kind of thing the whole movie, and then like the the Barb girl who was like like they sell her off as like the main character for a lot of the movie, but she's drunk the whole time. And then there's like so like and Margaret Kidder's Barb, and she's obviously from the Superman movies and everything, but she's the one who is acting like she's drunk the whole time, and she's the one who's fucking around and drinking beers in like the police station and everything like that. And you're like, yeah. And the guy on the phone is so over the top, but I enjoy the top nature of it, because he's like, it's almost like they were trying to take Norman from Psycho and kind of like trying to like make it a little more modern, because it's like this movie is really rated R for the language. Like,
Yeah,
and
totally.
maybe like you talk about like what you're expecting from like a current movie watcher. They drop cunt in this movie like on the phone like right
Yeah.
away, and you're like, that must have been a crazy thing back in the 70s. Like, you get on a phone call and they're dropping the word cunt on a phone call, and you're like, what the fuck? And like, I bet if you go back to reviews, there's like things about like obscenity and whatnot with that, because like we said, the only real like violence where they like show a murder happening is one of the characters, I think it might be Barb, one of the characters gets stabbed to death with a like a glass unicorn, and you don't see the stabbing,
No.
you just see
It goes up and then you
the
see
like,
blood has been added to the weapon and then it goes
yeah,
back down. It's like a Hitchcock type vibe.
yeah,
Which,
yeah,
like
and
if it was done a little bit better would have
yeah,
worked more for me. Like I see why there's a huge appeal and a large crowd
yeah.
that like this
Well,
movie, but I was underwhelmed.
it's there's like a lot that I really like. The characters, like we were talking about, like Mrs. Mack is fucking hysterical. I
She's the
love her,
best. She's the
and
fucking
is
best.
by far the best part of this movie. But like, it builds up a lot of tension, which is, I don't know if they take advantage of it as much as they could have, because all the characters are so like idiotic the whole time. Like, they're all like
They're all
not
this
paying attention.
Yeah, they're all doing the same thing though. Like they're all kind of one. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
So my wife walked in when the girl got told to leave the house by the cop, and he's like, "It's in your house." And my wife's like, "Oh, it's a horror movie, so she's gonna go stay in and go looking for him." And yeah, it does. And I knew it was happening because I've seen this before. And I'm like, it's so frustrating, because that's one of those things about horror movies that can be embarrassing as a horror movie fan, where you're like, why do these people in these movies do shit like this? Where it's like,
I
it
think
doesn't
that's
make
why I like modern horror movies that toy with that and like make the characters smart and they still get
yeah,
fucked, because that's
yeah,
more satisfying for an audience now. It's like, "Oh, yes. They're
yeah,
doing what I would do. Fuck it." Dude, they're dead. And it's like,
yeah,
"Yes," cuz then that's satisfying for the filmmaker. It's like, "Ha, fuck
yeah.
you."
Yeah, and this is more of like the audience would be like, I don't know if they were yelling at the screen in the 70s, but like no, no, don't do that, you
Oh,
idiot. What are you
my wife
doing?
was
What
yelling
do you
again.
Yeah.
Come
It
on.
just you're like it, well, the problem is too, like, right, the only reason where I kind of find it like okay is because at this point she has no idea. This Jess character, I think is Jess was her name, right? Yeah, she's the one who sounds like she's French, even though she isn't. Played by Olivia Hussey. Nobody at this point knows what this guy's actually done, right? Nobody ever finds the first girl's body in the attic, or even the Mrs. Mack's body. So like, there's a missing person. Really, that's the only like known item. Like, she goes upstairs like after the cop tells her to leave, and finds Barb and the other girl murdered in the bed together. So that's like kind of the first point. Like, I don't, maybe because she thinks that this crazy dude in the house is just a crazy dude calling and like jerking off while he's on the phone. Like, it's the only
And that's
thing
what it
that like
sounded
makes
like, man, for most of
yeah.
them. It was like, like, what the hell,
Well,
man? What are you doing?
he sounds like he's doing like 9 voices of like insanity, right? Like
Yeah.
he's doing all these different voices, and it's
It
like
wasn't even like
this
scary.
dude.
It was just like really annoying.
It's just it's the creepy comes from it like that this guy is just blatantly calling these people, and obviously it's in the 70s, so it's not like you saw what they had to go through to figure out where this dude was.
Yeah.
But it's just like that cockiness of all of it that like nobody's gonna find this dude doing this, and we get to the point where yeah, that's the case. Nobody does find him doing it. So we could just go through and kind of like step by step through this. It is again 1974's Black Christmas. It was directed by Bob Clark, and kind of gone over some of the cast and the ones that kind of matter. The movie starts off with like this sorority house that is they're being fucked with, right? They have these phone calls coming
Hello,
in,
hello.
and it actually I feel like it starts off really well with that though because it like
Aesthetically, I love the house. There's a lot of
yeah,
good shots in this, and like, but weirdly, there's like a lot of really bad shots too, where it's just like, what happened?
yeah,
All of a sudden, it looks like they're using a different camera, and it's really not
yeah,
lit properly. I'm like, what? Just
yeah.
like what? And then it goes back, and then it
That
like is good again, and I was like, what
yeah.
happened?
That house seems really hard to light well. It
It
like
was a
from like how big
beautiful fucking place.
yeah.
Holy.
It's a beautiful house, this sorority house. And like right away though, like you're seeing this guy like and they do the whole like the real ancient like cliche of they show the killer from the first person perspective,
Oh yeah,
which which is done really well because the whole like it holds up
I
the fact
really
that
liked it actually. Yeah.
yeah. But it this movie has a bleak fucking ending. Like a real bleak ending compared to like a lot of movies like say Halloween which came out 4 years later. Even like again Texas Chainsaw because it's that 74 thing. It has a real bleak ending compared to both of those movies because no one gets I mean you kind of assume that the main girl is Jess is going to get murdered or is getting murdered as the movie ends, but um, so like the guy is like basically very beginning is climbing into this like they have like gardening or like he's just climbing a ladder on the side of the house like the like where like plants would be growing up the side of the house, and this house is he goes all the way up to the 3rd story, nobody notices,
Everyone
and
is
he
so
climbs.
fucking oblivious in this movie, and it pissed me
Yeah.
off, man. It just pissed me off too much because I'm like, no one is that fucking oblivious.
But they're all these
I
sorority
guess
girls are
they're.
fucking wasted
I know,
the
but
entire goddamn movie.
ugh.
I'm not saying it's an excuse, but like yeah, it's and it's fucking that house like you said is huge.
It
That
is
house is
massive, yeah.
massive.
But there
Like
was a part in the movie where she was like, uh, the guys on the other line eavesdropping in the
yeah,
cop shop, and she's trying to make it go on a little longer, and he starts like, and she's like, looks behind her like, did I just hear something upstairs? Like, she fucking heard it. Like, what? You just heard it. Come on, go and fucking look. Like, oh my god, that was how
so
fucking furious it. Yeah.
yeah.
Go on.
So also I wonder like so the phone that he's making all these phone calls from because as soon as he calls up into the attic, they get a phone call right after this. The phone that he like it make apparent later on in the movie that the phone he's using has to be in Mrs. Mack's room, right? Like there's a ladder up into the attic, right? And like the room right next to it is Mrs. Mack, the house mother who we love. And she's got the only other line in the house. They have like 2 landlines and they're both downstairs. So like he goes down and he must have figured this house out because one, you know that he's been like fucking with these girls for a while. This isn't like a random new thing. This is like a planned, like this motherfucker is methodical, like because he is fucking with them and he's been fucking with them the whole time. Like previous, they don't really ever go into how long he's been fucking with them, but like as soon as he gets in the house, he calls them again and he's like, I'm gonna lick your cunt and blah blah
Oh,
blah. And
right.
he's just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
what?
yeah.
Yeah. He's just like, this dude is not fucking around, and it's like, I wonder if it makes it really apparent, like it seemed like they're like implying that this guy's just sitting there jerking off while he's like
Yeah.
fucking with these girls. Um and the girls are all like ready to go home for Christmas break. And they're all just like, the Barb is just fucking toasted. Margaret Kidder is like drunk the entire time. And they're like, whatever. And they just like kind of like, you crazy bitch. Like they're just like, whatever. They're not scared of this guy, which is also concerning. And if you ask me, because this guy is obsessed with them and it doesn't like, I don't know. So they get him off the phone and the one girl goes upstairs and it's a pretty good shot, like where she's going into her closet and like they have like dry cleaning bags and you could see like the guy's one eyeball is all you could really see. And she goes back into the closet and he like suffocates her with the dry cleaning bag, which leads to him taking the body up. And I don't know how the fuck he got that body up into the attic without making like all the noise in the world, you know? Like, how did you move her up that ladder? Because it's just like a ladder on the wall to go up into this attic. And but he gets her up there and nobody notices, like you were talking about, and with the plastic bag on her head and just puts her in a rocking chair and she sits there for the entire movie just like rocking. And the only reason that it isn't the most insane thing in the world is it's like the third story of the house. So it's not like you're looking into like the front on, because it doesn't look like there's anyone, like it looks like there's like a big old field in front of their house, because the field's where they find the body of the high school girl later on, right? This guy's body count is actually way more impressive than you think it is at first, because you think about it, you're like, how many motherfuckers did this dude kill?
Yeah, but I liked the
And
2006
so
one because they showed some shit. But like, I guess again, that's just me wanting more.
Yeah.
I guess I do like more modern horror.
I mean, I love the like the graphic kills and all that stuff, but like I appreciate the slow burn of what's happening with this, where it's this dude is taking these girls out one at a time, like from their own house, and nobody realizes it, right?
Yeah.
So that they move on to the next day, and this girl who is dead in the attic, her father is supposed to be picking her up,
I guess
and
that is a very scary premise.
yeah. What's the whole like? It's like the whole. I mean, they've turned the concept into plenty of things, like that babysitter that like the call's coming from inside thing, which they destroyed the premise of in all those movies. But this is a pretty original, like one of the more like earlier versions of the story being told like that. So it's the guy with the pimp coat that finds him, right? The dad, or is it the other? Yeah, it's the guy with the pimp coat. He finds him and he takes him back to the sorority house or wherever he takes, or the fraternity house. He takes her somewhere to like figure out where the daughter is, and this is like leads to where they're looking for this girl for the next couple hours, and this is where they end up going to the police station, and after they can't find her, and they're the other funny thing I love about this part is the guy in the Santa Claus outfit, who is just like, he seems like he's a worse Santa than Billy from Silent Night, Deadly Night. He's just like, nah, I don't really want to be fucking with these little kids.
I know.
And I'm pissed.
Like, that whole scene, Kissy, was just like, holy shit. When they're like feeding the kid beer, she's just like, what the fuck is this movie?
I know it's so like shit that you couldn't even get away with now, like with the you're feeding these little kids alcohol to shut them the fuck up, which is hysterical to me, but
I
like
thought it was
in
pretty
a
funny.
movie.
Yeah.
Um and this all happens, and this is when they go to the police station, and Barb is like drinking beer in front of the cops and giving him the fellatio phone number. But while this is happening, you meet Mrs. Mack, who's the house mother for this sorority, and she's fucking hysterical. She's running around the house, and she's got Sherry, like I said, hidden in every room of this fucking house, and it's every scene where it's like her trying to find Sherry in different places, and then the dad for the missing girl comes over, and I love it because she's like covering up these people fucking on a poster that looks like a peace symbol, and she's like just covering up an ass with her hands, like because the father's like, I paid for this for my daughter to go to college, not for drinking and debauchery. Right?
No
She's just like,
fucking. And she's like, oh, there's a bug.
there's an ass, so I'm gonna cover this up.
Very blatantly, and like.
Mrs. Mack, every scene she's in has the most horrible outfit that I've ever seen in one way or
she's
another.
so two-faced, like right
Yeah.
behind every person's back, like, fuck
Yeah.
you. Okay, where are we going? Like, I fucking
And
hate
plus,
this
it's
person.
like she's just angry because she hasn't got enough Sherry like in her at any point, and she's wearing these
so
horrible
funny.
hats. And the girls give her this nightgown or this whatever dress. I don't know what the fuck it is, and it is awful. And she's like, "Where am I gonna go in this?" I'm like, "I don't go anywhere. I'm old." It's just like, oh my god, I love you so much. And she's fucking hysterical. And
She's my favorite
she
part.
like, yeah. At some point, they have this cat that the sorority house has been like missing.
I think she
Like,
got
they
the
don't know
best
where it is.
death, but it also. I was like, oh, that could have been really cool if they didn't cut it out too. But I think she got
Yeah.
the best, like
Yeah.
the,
So
the
she hears this
coolest
cat.
death, I guess.
Yeah, she hears this cat, and in the attic, and she goes up into the attic, and she's like looking around for the cat, doesn't ever find the cat, but like then eventually she sees the body sitting there in this rocking chair, and the dude is like sitting in a corner and like drops his hook in. It goes through her jaw, I think, is like what they kind of.
It was like the pulley
They don't-
system to bring stuff up into the attic. So it was like the hook and the wooden pulley system with the ropes and everything in
Yeah.
it, right? So
Yeah.
he like threw that
Yeah.
down, and I think it like somehow hooked into her jaw, and then she was like dangling there, and it like
Yeah.
showed her feet to show that she was. But you
Yeah.
know, obviously they weren't showing violence back then. But did they show someone get killed like that in the remake? I don't see.
I've never seen either one of the remakes.
Oh, really?
So I don't know. Yeah, I haven't seen the 2006 one either.
Oh, it's got
Um,
like all the classic.
I know. I think it's Trick or Treat. The Trick or Treater podcast is doing that this week, and so I'm gonna have to check it out and see what they say about it because I I like the idea of turning this into more of a slasher, but it's funny, man. Like this movie has a body count, and you're like, and you know, I don't know if you. It's this movie's a slasher, but it's not as.
See,
It's got,
I
like,
love
murder
like
mystery.
older Hitchcock films and stuff because but it was more. It was done more in an artsy way, whereas this one was just like low budget, and then it just felt more low budget because they didn't show anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he takes out Mrs. Mack, and like nobody misses her because she was talking to some of the girls about going to visit her sister. So everyone just assumes she's going to visit
for
her
sure.
sister.
He timed
and then they
these
go
pretty
off on-
well, actually, like for
Yeah.
not getting caught longer and like
Yeah. It seems like this guy is either really, really, really smart, but like he's also
who the fuck is
Either
he
that
and
or-
how does he know? And like he has to like
Yeah.
have been like you got to think about it, right? Like he's got to be like at least related to somebody at some point in that house to have known it
Well-
exists or be there or something. Like what the fuck?
he figures out a lot because like I said, he
He's just there
the guy has been
listening, right?
fucking with him for a while,
Uh,
so maybe he's stealing mail, maybe he's doing shit like that. Like he's obviously been watching him because like there's a point it's somewhere around here where like before they go to the police station where this mother comes in and her daughter's missing and they don't ever confirm it, but it's kind of suggested that when this guy is going in to like do this, kills a high school girl too, but it's never confirmed or anything. And which is another thing I like about this movie. It's just like, is this high school girl getting killed in this field right in front of their house? Is it a coincidence or did this guy do it? And you kind of assume he did it, but they never confirm anything like that, which is something I like. It's that you're thinking about how much has this guy really fucking done, right? And so there's a subplot that's going on at this point where Jess goes to her boyfriend and she's like, I need to talk to you. And she basically goes up and tells him that she's pregnant. And he's like, oh, I want to marry you. And she's like, no, man. It seems like if she wasn't like pregnant, she would have broke up with this dude. And she completely destroys him. And he's about to have this like symposium where he's like playing this piano thing. And this guy sucks. I wish they would have done something that this guy didn't seem like a 13-year-old who's been playing piano for 2 years, not like someone who's going to college to become a professional piano player. And he goes in front of his professors and just fucks. He sucks real bad. And it like leads to afterwards. This motherfucker comes in with like a
Cause
mic
he's like,
stand.
what? Is this like a type of music? when he was playing the song, she's like, "What is like? I don't even know.
Bad.
I don't know what type of music this actually is." I was like, "I don't think it is either. I don't know. Yeah. It was weird."
They just like, you know what? You wonder if we're talking about budgets, if they just like had some shitty composer come up with something for this guy to play.
Man. It didn't make sense.
Yeah, just in there going, oh no, that's what happened. They didn't want to pay for any real music, so they just came up with something. And the piano thing seems like it's off key, doesn't it? Like
it
it's
doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I was like, those like notes don't like go together. Yeah,
it's like he was off like on a scale or something like that. It was like it was supposed to be a C and he was like a D. I don't know. I'm not a musician, but like
it could have been just like
even me, I'm
doing
like
a really complicated song to show technique or something over our heads, you know? Like I don't know. I'm a drummer.
And
don't ask
but
me.
It goes bad because you see him like afterwards, he's like he picks up this like mic stand and just starts slamming it into the open piano, and you're like, how much damage did this motherfucker just do? Because these pianos aren't goddamn cheap, right?
Oh yeah.
And this guy just destroyed this fucking piano. Like there's like another thing I wish they would have done. I wish they would have actually had him like showed him like visibly fuck it up, because I don't think he was actually hitting it, but they sell these that does. And like this whole thing leads to like the cops are thinking that this guy is the suspect because he comes back to the house later and he's fighting with her again, with Jess again.
Well, he also has the exact same haircut and fucking crazy eyes. So like it's a really good sell that it's him. You think it's him pretty much up until you find out that it's not him, because he looks the exact same. He's fucking crazy as hell too. So like it's a good sell.
But the best part about it all is at some point Jess goes, but the cops are talking to her about it, and they're like, was he here when any of the phone calls happened? Like, she's like, yeah, he was here with one of them. And then they immediately forget that. And they're like, oh no, I mean, he's whatever because he's crazy. Like they sit there and they figured out that he couldn't have been this, like the guy, the one doing this, like calling and everything like that. And so they're all like sticking their heads in the sand, like, oh, nothing's happening and whatever. And the cops have now wired their house for when like the phone calls happen, right? Trying to figure out what this is.
The whole wiring like situation is just so comical to me.
It's funny as shit, man, because they have this tech guy comes in and he's like like, pulling off the bottom of the phone and doing something
Big
with it. And
screwdrivers and fucking.
yeah. And they're like, and then he's like, yeah. And how many calls you could hear? It's like, so they start getting phone calls at the sorority house at this point, and the cops are just like picking up at the cop.
Yeah,
Like,
it's so ancient technology. Just wait,
Yeah.
just wait. Shh. I gotta pick up. That's all they're doing.
and John Saxon is just sitting there listening to the phone calls for the rest of the movie. Like, is he
like a
jerking
creep.
off?
Yeah, like a creep.
Is everyone jerking off while listening to phone calls in this movie? I'm going to put the odds at 50-50 because these cops are also bad. They wouldn't have noticed him jerking off in the middle of the police station, I'm pretty sure.
I thought I saw one in the background doing something.
Yeah. And so, like, the guy calls back at some point and he keeps not being on the line long enough. And this is all leading to like,
that happened too many times too. Like Kissy and I, she's just like the eye roll. We're just, but we don't get it, right? Like we're so far from that, so we just do not get it. And it was just like, oh my god, like it had to be that fucking long. Holy shit!
I mean, you and I both have like, you're a couple years younger than me, but it's like we're at the point where.
I had that exact phone when I was a kid, that rotary phone that they were using, man.
Yeah, you're sitting there, but like it's funny because like that stuff was so prevalent back in the day, right?
Yeah.
We had landlines and
for sure.
all this shit. And this was way before even cordless phones, right? And so they have two fucking phones in this sorority, or 3 phones including the house mother's phone. And that's just what they had to use, right? And so everything leads to the point where the guy calls back again and stays on the line long enough. And
because he had to finish eventually, man. He's like, this phone call might take a little bit longer because
he'd been harassing him so much his balls were a little dried up, so he needed to be on the phone a little bit longer.
It sounded like to me, dude.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it sounds like he's but then he sounds like he's an 8-year-old girl at some points on the phone. Yes. So I don't know. And he eventually stays on long enough, and none of it like makes any sense. It's just like insanity and yelling and everything. And when he gets on long enough, when the guy is like running around the phone switching area, is hysterical because he's like running from aisle to aisle. And this place looks like a fucking like.
What the hell was it? Looks that? Like I love when he flicks into the one line and it was just like people like, what did you say about it? He's like, oh fuck, it's not that call. I was like, oh my god.
It's just like people having like 70s phone sex. And like he's running, and it's like the room where all the like the firearms came into the Matrix. It's like this big white nothing with all these shelves.
Yeah.
And
totally.
And he eventually gets it, and he's like, he calls like John Saxon's character. He's like, it's at this number. He's like, no, you idiot. That's where the thing is. And he's like, no, it's the same address. And that's the whole like, the phone calls coming. Dun, dun, dun. And so they've forgotten that the boyfriend couldn't have been this dude because he was there when the phone calls happened.
Yeah, but he came with those fucking crazy eyes again. It was like, where have you fucking been?
So like the whole thing with him is like, he doesn't want her to have an abortion, right? He wants to keep the baby. And it's like, he might be a little crazy, but he kind of seems like an like you could understand his motivations, right?
Yes.
This guy's having a fucking panic attack because he loves this chick. And obviously she wants nothing to do with him, or is getting to the point where she wants nothing to do with him.
Because she has seen his eyes.
Yeah. He does. She should have been fucking the guy with the pimp fur coat because he didn't have the crazy eyes.
And he had a jawline that looked like a football field. I don't even know what that means.
Oh yeah, I know.
But
his jawline was like the Stan on American Dad. He's got that like
it was crazy,
real solid jawline that you're like, damn, I wish I had a jawline like that. And so they had left a cop out in front of the house. The one thing I'm questioning at all this, when did this dude come out of their house and slit the cop's throat?
I don't
Like
know,
I
but that
don't know.
prosthetic was terrible.
Oh, it was one of those. It was one of those things that just looked like like they had taken like cherry juice and rubbed it on the guy's neck. It didn't even look like prosthetics. It looked like they just put
Kool-Aid.
fake blood, yeah, on his neck. And so like the cops are coming to show up, and they call and they're like, get out of the house. And it like at this point, the only one who's like running around in the house anymore is Jess.
Well, you never know when
She's
anything. Well, I guess you don't see enough, and that's
yeah.
just a huge thing.
Well, so okay, they tell her to get out of the house, and they had talked to her earlier in like Barb is the drunk, okay, aka Margaret Kidder, had gone up to take a nap, and there was like another girl who was upstairs that I'm not sure was like ever introduced, or she was one of the background sorority girls
Yeah.
that like didn't have a real story or a character or background. And they he killed one of them with the unicorn glass thing at some point, and probably both of them, because like they end up, she goes upstairs after they told her to leave, and she finds both the girls like naked and dead and like stabbed to death. And so they're both dead. And she like the guy's like hiding behind the door frame or something like that. And she like hits him with it, and like you hear the craziest fucking noises in the world. And she runs downstairs and tries to get out the front door. And there's like this reoccurring theme throughout the fucking the movie that these girls have a door that won't open half the time. And she can't get out the front door. And it's like, you guys have this beautiful fucking house, like gorgeous house, like one of the like this house is a dream house, and you can't get the goddamn door fixed, and it doesn't make any sense. Like you have all these guys coming in and out, you have your house mother, and no one could get this goddamn door fixed because this just didn't start fucking happening.
There's
like
so many tropes that I saw that obviously were originated in this movie that Scream stole so many like shots and full on like sequences and everything from this movie. So I can see how it's like an iconic or whatever type film or whatever. I just found out that they're making a Turbo Kid 2. Sick! Cool. Have you seen Turbo Kid?
I've seen trailers. I've never actually seen
dude, watch that fucking movie. That's a good time.
Yeah, so because this girl can't get out the front door, she goes into the basement and locks the door, which is actually a pretty decent idea at this point. But this is the like where they throw you off, and they're like, okay, her boyfriend's gonna show back up again. And for some reason, he breaks through the window, like after like he like spends 5 minutes like defrosting the window. He's like, oh, I'm gonna breathe on this window a bunch and I'm gonna wipe it. I'll fuck it. And he just kicks the window in.
Like full on. Fuck this window.
And yeah. And she's sitting in a corner, like holding a fire poker, like just freaked out of her mind. And
he was not like casual about it at all. He was like, fuck you, window.
It's just like,
he's crazy.
It's like
he looked in with his crazy eye and then went to a window. Like, of course she's gonna be like, "Fucking get out of here!"
Yeah.
Like,
well, then they go off and they go
like the doppelganger of the killer that she just saw. Dude, come on.
Well, the funny part about this movie is like we're talking about him not showing anything. They zoom out to like the external house shot and they hear her screaming, and then a couple minutes later the cops show up and they go. The door works fine all of a sudden again, and they come in and they go into the basement, and she's holding the dead body of her boyfriend after she's bludgeoned him to death with a goddamn fire poker.
But he only has 2 drips of blood on him. Don't worry.
Yeah. Which makes me laugh because they're like, and then the cops are all like, "Oh, I knew it was him." You're like,
I know.
Like the evidence we've acquired as even just the audience proved that it couldn't be him. I mean, crazy maybe, but, and this is what makes me laugh. And so like, instead of taking her down to the police station and be like, "Hey, why did you cave in your boyfriend's head with a fire poker?" They like just let her go take a nap and they all leave the house.
I know. I
And
was
you're,
like, what? Like,
when you
you don't
when you be
actually
looking
know that he was the killer, and he
that
was hiding
that
the whole time. You're not gonna
yeah
take her to a fucking hospital. You're just gonna be like, "Okay, peace," and turn the lights off, and everyone
yeah
leave. Like, yeah, she's
yeah.
fine.
Everyone leaves. Everyone leaves. They haven't investigated the house at all. At all. They're like, they don't know if it was just, okay, even if it was him, they have no evidence that there wasn't anyone else involved or anything. And so what do? They go, okay, we're just going to leave now and lock the front door that she couldn't open up before and leave her in the house with the crazy dude and the multiple bodies. So they probably pulled the two bodies out, the two, Barb and the other girl. They pull them out in an ambulance, but they just leave her with the killer. Don't take her, bring her to the police station. Don't take her, bring her to the hospital. And they're just like, "No, you're good, girl, right?" And then she just presumably gets murdered. And then this guy like jerks off and hangs himself in the middle of their foyer or something. I don't know. Like, you go, this is not a happy ending. This is Black Christmas is a very appropriate name for how this movie is, and
And then
tone
it
wise, it
zooms out
ends.
to the exterior of the house, showing the girl like with the bag on her head, just waving goodbye.
It's the whole like they're like, "Oh, she's there. Oh, okay." So it's like you're saying that nobody could figure this out, and now that you just left her in with this guy who has you've seen his eyeball, like literally, it's like some of his hair, and that's the whole like that's what I really liked about the movie is that they give you this like the boyfriend looks like this dude and he acts crazy. I mean, he's smashing shit, but it's not him because of everything we've seen happen. And like the like you don't blame Jess for blaming her crazy ass boyfriend, but man, you're sitting there and like this girl's getting murdered while this movie goes to the credits, right? Like, there's no way she isn't, and nobody will ever know. Maybe you'll check out. Maybe the cops will check out the entire house next time,
I doubt it.
or maybe the cops are so fucking stupid in this movie, man. Like, goes to credits with just the killer and Jess in the house together, and you're just like,
So we talked
well,
about the worst cops I've ever seen in a movie, and then you bring up the best cop I've ever seen in a movie, Wolf Cop, in the same sentence. So
well,
yeah, Wolf Cop is the fucking best cop always.
Wolf Cop fucks shit up, man.
Oh
Wolf
yeah,
Cop, Wolf Cop would have smelled him in the attic. I would have fucked him up,
yeah.
but
Wolf Cop. Have you seen Wolf
but
Cop 2? Another
no,
Wolf Cop. That's what
I
it's
haven't
called.
seen Wolf Cop 2.
It's called Another
That
Wolf
movie,
Cop.
my favorite part of Wolf Cop is the like the whole like
I
they
love
talk about
comedy shit like that.
shapeshifters and they're like, oh, the shapeshifters. We need to kill a werewolf in order to like stay as shapeshifters. Actually, you know what that movie reminded me of
It's so
was
Canadian, man, and that's what I love about it. It's so just like fuck everything. It's beer, it's
what
hockey, it's like it's so good.
what was the movie? It was what the fuck was that movie that you watched the wrong version and I
Oh
watched the other
fuck.
one
The
that was like
Call or something? I don't know.
what?
The Call, wasn't it? Or something like that?
No, it was like like it had like a swirly logo
Oh,
and I forget
Spiral.
what the Spiral. It reminded me of Spiral because Spiral has the same kind of like concept where this like town does shit like this and they
Oh, Wolf Cop's like premise is like what like you've seen it, but not
yeah,
as like a wolf cop.
yeah. Oh, the movie's ridiculous, but it was really entertaining. So I like a lot of this movie. I think I was able to pull myself away and kind of try to hold it contextually to what was going on in the 70s. Like the
Yeah, I
budget
have to
is I mean,
say that I have to give it more context because of but
yeah.
whatever. I'm in
It's
2020, so fuck this movie.
so it's I think and I like talking about this because this was an independent movie. This wasn't a big movie. And so it's like we just talk about we were able to talk about independent movies contextually from like back then to now. I mean, because like some of the most influential horror movies ever were like independent. Like Halloween was basically independent, right? It had no budget. It had like $300,000 as a budget.
But it's so
This
good.
movie's budget wasn't very big, and again, we talk about the acting being questionable, but I think that this movie set up so many premises of what slashers can be, with like sorority girls getting picked off one by one,
Yeah.
and
I think it
uh
gave a lot of like I said, tropes that are snagged from this, and that it became like
yeah,
classic things just to do in a horror movie itself. Because this is fucking old,
yeah.
right? So I don't know what influences were
I mean,
before this.
I think this movie had like Psycho as an influence for sure. Psycho, because of the like the it seemed like the killer had multiple personalities, right? Like
Right.
that was like the what the phone calls were, and like at some point it was like no mommy, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll be a
Really
good
weird
boy. It was
stuff.
like the Disturbed song.
Yeah.
Oh, mommy, don't hit me again. I'll be a good boy. It was kind of like what this phone call was turning into. Ooh, ah, ah, ah. And
Jinx on a
I
ooh ah ah ah. Ah.
ooh, ah, ah, ah. Man, talk
The
about like
floor.
a man with like short man Napoleon syndrome, dude. That the lead singer of Disturbed is about 3'7", like
Really?
in high heels. So, um, but him and Corey Taylor are like exactly the same height. They're both little men. Um,
Budanga digi dang daga dooda.
I'm now at this point. I'm interested in. I don't know if we probably wait till like next Christmas time to talk about the remake or something because of everything. But I'm interested in seeing like what the 2006 version does, because I've heard weird things
I
about
think I
like
saw it in
a lot of people.
theaters. Yeah, I
Yeah,
totally saw that in theaters.
I think it came out my last year of college, and so like I didn't have time to. I'm like trying to graduate and need to do all the shit that like that you need to do when you're graduating. So I never saw it. But I hear like weird things about it. It's like it's one of those movies that people seem to either hate or have weird, like a guilty pleasure. I think I've heard people call
I
it.
don't know. I'd have to
Uh,
rewatch it. I don't remember enough about it. I just remember I liked it definitely more than
yeah.
this.
I mean, we could do. I mean, dude. To be honest, you and I, if you want, and at some point, I don't know when we would do it. We can maybe do like a bonus episode and talk about the second and third one, and maybe try to do that before the end of the month. But I'm actually kind of horrified about how bad the 2019 version of this movie is. But
Have you seen it?
maybe we'll see and try to do that and do
You've seen
something.
the newest one,
No, I
or
haven't. I'm
you just
saying
heard?
I've heard of how bad it is.
I
So
would love. See, that's what I'm saying, man. I really wish we almost saw all three and made it into a slam
yeah,
episode, just like
I think
the
yeah,
Black Christmas episode. You know?
the trilogy,
Yeah.
even though it's the same movie. It's weird though, man. I mean, like contextually, you think about it. How many horror movies have been remade
Oh, and
twice?
it's totally trendy to do it again right now. Like
Yeah,
especially in
yeah,
horror. Like it is super
mm,
duper trendy to say
yeah,
fuck off to 10 movies that have been
yeah.
there and say no. This is now the second movie. Fuck you.
Well,
And
dude, yeah.
it's super trendy to do that now. So
Well, dude, they could do that with this one. Like
100%.
literally, they take something like that and they take the original and they make a sequel, and they could call it Black Christmas again, and like the guy never got caught, and like maybe he comes back like 30 years later, 40 years
It
later. I mean,
almost
it's
feels like
obviously it's almost
I don't know, man. Like not in the modern age. There's no way. Like there's too many things that like in modern days that just like crush all the like
no,
tropes
no. I mean,
and stuff,
I'm not
right?
even talking about like doing the same tropes and everything like that. They could have it like this guy never got caught, and he maybe goes on a killing spree again in modern day. He doesn't
Yeah,
have
I
to do the
guess.
whole thing, but like this dude would be like 70 at this point. So like, can you imagine like a 7-year-old like fucking murdered? Yeah,
On the phone, just like
I can smell your cunt or whatever the
oh
fuck
my
he's, and like
god.
this is the guy from obviously from Silence of the Lambs, but like it'd be interesting, especially with all that stuff, because obviously those two remakes were hot garbage. Even if like the 2006 version is some people enjoy and is whatever. We'll talk about that at some point, I guess. But it's just it shows you how iconic
I
this
have it on
movie is. Like,
DVD.
yeah. Well, dude, think about it. What I don't even I can't even tell you, to be honest, what how many times Texas Chainsaw has been rebooted, because like the
Well,
whole timeline for the last decade of that movie, is so insane.
Yeah, but you to understand why these things get remade as well is to like I don't fully understand the business side of things, but like when it becomes like a franchise like that and the rights are
Yeah,
owned, those things are way bigger than just a movie. Those are big
yeah,
franchises and big brands now, right? So
yeah,
the people that own the rights to the brand want to keep
yeah,
making as much money and keeping that afloat. So they're still making like money off of syndication, like on TV, and
yeah,
like all the other DVDs that are out there still being sold, and like now
yeah.
they're selling
I
the
mean,
rights to all these other streaming places and stuff. So like the
yeah,
movies themselves live on and keep making millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars every year, and in order for those ones to
yeah,
still, they got to keep doing it. And I think
yeah,
they only own rights to properties like that for a certain amount of time, and in order to keep the rights you have to keep making
yeah,
movies or some shit like that.
yeah. Well, that's look at like look at Hellraiser. Like Hellraiser is like that weird. They've made all those directed DVD movies, which are all just really, really bad movies. I really like Hellraiser 1 and 2 is weird, but like after that is a bunch of garbage. And then you go and look at things like Amityville and you how many there's like 10 plus movies of that. And you sitting there going, and
They're
you got
remaking Wrong Turn again, a fresh reboot, like because Wrong Turn got to like 10, I heard, or like 8 or some shit,
yeah,
right?
it's a lot of those
Yeah, and
movies.
now
And
they're
you're just
just
going,
like going back to square one again.
you're like in Wrong Turn, don't get me wrong, is a entertain
It's
the first one is an entertaining little thing, but
yeah,
then they hillbillies fucking each other and killing people
yeah,
in the wilderness thing got really out of control, and they were all like the first one was like a theater movie, and then every single
yeah,
one after
straight to
that was
DVD.
like directed to DVD. And you think about things like
Well, it's
you
like
disregard,
well, it's like that whole thing with Feast, and then you watch
yeah,
the sequels, because like Feast one, the guy won the contest that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck
yeah,
put on and
the
stuff,
Green
the
Light
Green Light
Project or
Project,
whatever it's
and
called.
like the first one was awesome, and you could tell it had
Yeah,
hands on from like the team and the whole
yeah,
thing that he won, and then the second and third one. You're like, this guy has zero class,
yeah.
and he doesn't
Well, it's
like they were still
yeah,
funny, and but it just like, oh, it's just like raunch humor upon
yeah,
raunch humor, and it's just like, okay,
yeah,
you're just like, it's not even funny because you're trying too hard now to go down that
yeah.
road, and it's like, fuck, it's just sloppy now.
Dude, even Hatchet was like that, where
Oh,
Adam Green
100%,
made
100%.
made those movies, and it's like the first movie was like was horror with some comedy, and they just turned those movies all. And I think Adam Green did the first three, but then you go that third one that or fourth one that had nothing to do with Adam Green. I don't think that was just called Victor Crowley. Was real bad, and you're going through contextual. It's just like these franchises because. Or it's that age old thing with horror, right? Horror costs no money to
Yeah,
produce, and so like they'll go and you give it a couple $1 million budget these days, and they make like double their budget back on like profits just from DVD and selling it to the Sci-Fi Network or USA and
yeah,
shit. And you're like, well, I mean, this is why these movies can be so cheap. I mean, it's like why you had Saw, like you take all the Saw movies and you add all their budgets together, and they're probably less combined than what the first one made in profit. Like, so it's like just pure profit because of these things. And you go,
oh dude, James Wan is just a profit making genius
yeah,
though, like
yeah.
that
So I mean,
he
it's
knows the business, like, and Warner Brothers has a cash cow with him, and that's why they give him
yeah,
so much power, but he deserves it because he knows how to
yeah,
craft a wicked movie.
yeah.
He understands it.
It's. I mean, we've talked about him on this podcast already a lot,
Oh,
and
I'm a
we've never
huge
done
fan of
one of
his.
his movies because the guy is so good at what he does, and it's like one of those things where you use him as a standard. Um, and it's just it's interesting, and like you doing this with you, it's just like we go back to these movies. Like again, this movie's almost 50 years old, and what it meant to horror, and what kind of marks it left, and
I
it's
definitely appreciate
interesting.
a lot of the things, but as a whole, and me watching completely blind again and not really,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
give two.
It's
I don't know. I don't know if it's
it's
because I don't have enough time, or I'm just that like whatever
The
about
movie's not even
everything.
that long either. The movie was like 90 minutes or 95 minutes or something like that. It's not a long movie, but like I can understand like that. And I just think I went along with the ride and enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the cheese aspects of it for what it was and
I think I was just
what
going through like the fucking shit week that I was having too, and I
yeah.
think
If you came into this movie with a bad like not a bad attitude, but a bad mood, I can completely understand not enjoying it
like
because
I don't
I think a
normally
lot
let
of
that
what I
shit
liked
like
about this movie is the ridiculous nature of characters and everything like that, and just what the atmosphere, what it is.
I don't know. I
Um,
still think it was a little too dull, like
yeah,
in comparison to like I need a little more horror in my horror.
yeah. Again, it's weird, man. It's what you expect as a consumer, and it's why like I like things that I saw later in life, like The Exorcist. I wasn't The Exorcist never even kind of scared
It's
me.
not
Is
a scary
the
movie at
problem?
all, and I don't
Yeah.
understand why everyone is so
So
scared of that fucking movie.
and I just think it's a contextual thing, man. It's a we talk about it now where like you go back and things like the human centipede would never have existed in the
No,
70s, right? Like the 70s was a time where I think
that's
these
shock.
kind of movies like Black Christmas and The Exorcist in Texas, they started pushing boundaries. Again, talk about Texas. I don't think Texas Chainsaw is nearly as horrifying as I would have been told of, like all my life. And I didn't see Texas Chainsaw until the first time until last year or early this year. So like
It is really dumb
contextually,
that they keep fucking breaking into that house, though. But it's
yeah,
way.
they do.
But that setting is way more terrifying to
Yeah,
me than the sorority house. But
yeah.
I just, I guess
It's it's in the middle of nowhere. It's compared to this like college town where there's people running
the
around
sound
everywhere.
of a
Like
chainsaw
there's
too, and like the screams and the sheer like the
yeah,
amount of audible terror in that
yeah.
movie.
I think it's the
It,
isolation thing, which this Black Christmas doesn't have.
yeah,
Even though I think that the elements of like
it's like a murder
pure
mystery,
terror,
like who done it, like kind of like
yeah,
yeah.
with heavy slasher aspects, because like I think the body count, like we talked about, he kills if he killed that high school girl, and I'm pretty sure he killed the cop. He killed one, two, three, four. He killed six people,
Totally.
which is
But
more
I
than
wasn't
Michael Myers.
satisfied at all.
Michael Myers didn't kill that many people in the original Halloween. So it's like you're sitting there going, and the
if
body count is
if there
impressive.
was more sound effects, like other movies
Yeah,
had the sound effects, and that is huge, and it sells it way
yeah,
more than most visuals. If you have
well,
a really fucking
yeah,
satisfying sound effect or good foley to add
yeah,
to even just the like lack of visuals that this movie had, if there was good
yeah,
foley, I would have fucking probably
yeah,
loved this movie, to be honest.
yeah.
There
It's
was just too
you
much
could have cut.
lacking in those very like important moments in for
Yeah,
me.
like when Mrs. Mac gets hit with that hook, like you could have just gone back to that exterior of the house and just have like that, just the
Like a
sound effect of a meat going,
yeah,
like a hook going into like a slab of beef or something like that, right? Just
yeah,
have that like visceral sound effect that
yes.
could have like made it feel so much more. And like you talk about the whole like when the barb or whoever gets killed by the glass unicorn. By the way,
They
what
use
kind of
it in
glass
the
unicorn could you
2006 one
stab?
too. Like they have that prop in the remake.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what kind of glass these people have. I think you stab anyone with
It's
that
just gonna
thing's gonna
break
fucking break.
inside them.
But
Yeah, and that would have
yeah,
been more
but
satisfying too. Then you start stabbing with the like broken part,
yeah.
more
Well,
violent. But I
they
guess
they stab her and there's like no sound effect. Like she screams a little bit, like or makes noise, right? Not enough that anyone notices in the house, but
it's
there's
really
nothing.
it's an artistic, very artistic take. Sometimes when like I said it wasn't as artistic as like a Hitchcock or something, but there was one death in particular, and I think it was either that one or where someone's getting stabbed, and then there's like some sort of like glass decorative thing in front of her, and it was like,
Yeah.
and she's like reaching up, and then you just see her like, but like, I was like, what is this? Like, this is the
Yeah.
most artsy
That
looking death I've ever seen, but it's still
and
like,
it's yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
that room is dark as fuck. Like
It
you're talking
looked,
about the
that was the only one
lighting.
that like
Yeah.
you could see anything, but that's how they.
Yeah.
I guess you, if you've never seen it done, no one's created a technique yet. Then how are they
Yeah.
going to use it, right? Like they
Well,
don't even
I mean,
know
again,
how to
you
film
could
and keep people safe, right? So,
you go back to things like Psycho, and
but
I'll
you
talk
gotta
about it again
figure it
because
out.
Psycho is like the thing that happened before this that was, you don't see anything in any of those scenes, right? Like the murder, like the stabbing scene, you don't see anything. And that scene's still way more like visceral than anything in this movie, but like it there's not the violence is contextual at this point, and I think they were using the imagination of the viewer to try to do it. And again, I don't know if this movie's accomplished what it was trying to do with that level of violence. But I appreciated what it did accomplish, and I appreciated the ride and what was happening and everything like that. So again, I think state of mind, and I would like you talking about having a bad week. It would be interesting to me to see what would happen if you go in like you're like sunshine and lollipops someday, and you go back and watch this movie and see what like
I don't think I would
in
like it anyways. It's too. It's too. There's not enough. Just
yeah.
hello.
Yeah, it's in
You
that's
gotta
cool,
stay
man.
on longer. Hello.
I completely like get on your level with what you're saying. I just think that I can go along with the ride of it and what it was a little bit better. Um, which is, I mean, it's good. It's like if you're going into a movie like this and like that kind of thing doesn't get you, cool,
I
man. I
think,
mean,
to be honest, like if I remember correctly, and Black Christmas came out kind of around the same time as like Urban Legends. I don't know. They kind of remind me.
there's no that's like that's almost a decade difference.
Is
Like
it
the Urban Legend, yeah, Urban Legend came out in '99, I think,
really?
and
I think they
I think
reminded me of one another for some reason. I don't know why. That
so. Urban Legend came out in yeah '98,
man, I
and
liked
the
that
remake
movie.
of Black Christmas came out in 2006. So the Urban Legend is more around the times. Like I think we talked about it
That came
earlier,
out
but
like
it came out.
Scream Time, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Type
It's
vibes.
I know what you did last summer.
Yeah.
Summertime is the more comparable time frame. What's funny about yeah, so I know what you did last summer. It came out in the remake came out in 90 or the second one came out in 98. So what was it 96? 97 is the first one. So I think what that Black Christmas was probably an answer to in 2006 was all those PG-13 movies, slasher movies that were coming out in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
So they were probably responding with that, and then like someone who loves horror was like, "Oh fuck this, we're gonna go take this old cool movie that really didn't show a lot, like you were talking about, and kind of make it more modern, and we're gonna make it edgier and more like violent." So, which makes sense because you have this baseline of you can make this a lot more violent than it is, and yeah. So man, I'm actually I am happy though that like you kind of like weren't as into this as like you said we've been on the same page for a lot of stuff, and I don't think we're that far off. I just think that there's like I think that you just wanted a little bit more, and I think if you would have gotten a little bit more, you would have been way happier. So
Yeah. 100%.
yep. So
Fuck this
well,
movie.
I'm okay with
No.
you saying that. I don't think that's gonna offend most people. So uh we have that movie coming up. So Deadly Games is that 1990 movie with Home Alone and Santa Claus. So we'll
That's on
be doing
Shudder.
that next week. So there's homework if you guys want to hang out and watch it and know what's going on. And it's good to do another foreign movie. We're gonna have to do next month. I want to start off because we had talked about it and you had your movie list. We would dive in and do Old Boy right away at some point next month.
I'm down.
And I know Old Boy's gonna. I want your response to Old Boy is gonna make me very happy. I hope. But
I've honestly, it has been on my list for over a decade, and
yeah,
I have like really close friends that have been like, "Fuck you, man! I cannot believe you have not watched it." So
yeah.
I know
Well,
I'm probably gonna be pretty impressed because like
and you're
it's from people that I really really trust their opinion on
yeah,
movies, and
yeah.
we will always pretty much. I love
I
it when like good friends of mine that we've been seeing movies and we are have influenced each other's decisions for years and years.
yeah,
And when we started like not seeing eye to eye on films, I was like, this is so interesting and I love it
yeah.
because it's like,
Yes, it's funny. I'll probably bring it up when we have Brian and Andy on because Brian didn't like Old Boy, and I'm like, that's funny because of all the thriller movies they talked about like last month, and I'm like, you didn't like this. Huh, that's weird. Um, but I
I've
think
heard
I
the
really do.
remake is just an abomination.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing as like Let the Right One In, and like
Oh
which turned
fuck
into the
yeah.
American Let Me
Oh
In,
my god.
and
And like pretty much it was too fast too, right? Because I had just
yep,
seen Let the Right One In at the
yep,
Calgary Underground Film Festival or something, and
yeah,
I was like, oh my god, this is like serious. I haven't left an underground film or like indie film
yeah,
in a while after that, or even before that. That I was like, holy
yeah.
shit! Like I've
Let the
seen
Right One
something
In.
special tonight.
Let the Right One In is. I have a poster on the wall, like right over here,
Yeah,
that is it's just all black and white besides like three or four drops of blood on it,
it's
and the
such a
movie
good
is
movie.
beautiful and shot. It's one of those. There are the few movies that I can go back to and point to my love of foreign horror. Let the Right One In is one of them. Old Boy's another like real like milestone for me with that. So
Yeah.
it's why I wanted to do this podcast just to reach out and find more of this stuff and find more stuff love and
Well, I
like
guess
you're
Pontypool is considered like foreign to most people, except for me because it's a Canadian film. But like that's
yeah.
one of those ones that I hold up in the same
when
position as like those type of films. Is Pontypool
when
is
you
always
when you
go
want to
back to
do
that
that
one.
when you want to do that one, that's one of those movies that's on my own personal list that
Oh, I would.
I haven't seen.
You haven't seen
So
Pontypool? You're gonna,
no,
yeah. That's a really cool one to watch, man. I think you'll really enjoy
when
it.
when you pick that out, we'll do that. So
100%. We got to do that one.
okay, well we got Santa Claus Home Alone next week, so we which puts us that will be our Christmas movie because we're recording this on the 16th. So
I've been
the
like weirdly Pontypool's been this like weird movie in my life that right at the first time that I got like introduced to like festivals and stuff, Pontypool was
mm,
like I don't remember what year that came out, but it was at the Calgary Underground Film Festival, and I think that was my
yeah,
first year I ever attended, and uh the director and lead actor were like
yeah,
there and stuff, and then like cut to like 10 years later, I was like uh filming like a YouTube video because I always like did stuff at the festival or would
yeah,
help with coverage and stuff. And then he's at the
yeah,
front door and he's like, "Hey, doing like a 10-year anniversary of Pontypool." And then he's like, "Where are we
yeah,
going?" I'm like, "I don't what the fuck? Oh, hey man, how's it going? Whoa, cool." And then I followed him and got a cool shot for
yeah,
my video and then the
yeah,
whole like interview and all that stuff. So like I
yeah,
I don't know, it's like that weird thing that when some things like filmed close to your home or something like that as well, you have that
yeah,
like
yeah.
I don't know, someone asked me a question today, they're like, this movie doesn't deserve like that much praise, like that Zed movie I was telling you about, or Z.
Yep.
and
I think I'm pretty sure I've seen that movie by the way, but yeah.
and I'm like, blah blah blah, and then I think, because it was filmed in my hometown, and I was just like trying to see how it was. They did such a good job at hiding that, and most films that film here, you can definitely tell that it's fucking Calgary,
Yeah.
and I couldn't tell at all, and they just did such a good job with so many things. I was
Yeah.
really impressed with what
Dude,
they accomplished from like a filmmaker's perspective, right? He's not getting it from my
yeah.
perspective, and like I'm just like, wow, and so like in awe of like the buddy from Calgary making fucking Wicked. wicked
Yeah.
horror films, and I'm like, man,
Dude,
kudos, dude. That's my
so
perspective.
I saw a lot of people getting very, very upset about The Last of Us 2 getting a bunch of Game of the Year awards last week at the Game Awards that came out. And the things like it just showed me that like, and it's apparent because it's always apparent, but like art is such a thing that like it's so hard for people to agree on
Oh
or
yeah.
disagree on, or like it just to be on the exact same level, because that game was brilliant to me, and the writing and all these things that people were complaining about, like I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
It's
And it's just
because it didn't do the same quest as the first one, and they loved the first one so much they
yeah,
wanted the same experience again, and they didn't
yeah,
get that. So if because they went in with those expectations, they didn't get that, they're going to be pissed off regardless of what they get, even though
yeah,
it was an amazing storyline and it deep,
yeah,
and you still got like more backstory on characters and stuff. It doesn't matter. They
yeah,
didn't get the
yeah,
same exact
yeah,
thing, and that's why they're mad.
yeah. It's yeah, it's I will never seem to be like, I know that me myself, I am probably more likely a lot of times to give movies, try to enjoy the parts of them that are enjoyable, or games or whatever like that. I can hang on to the things that are good, but there's so
Yeah.
many people in this world who can't do that and just can only hang on to the bad. And I'm like, and movies and games are my escape, and so I'm going to try to find things that are positive and that make me happy and give me that
I
that
see
that
them from more of a technical side though. So like if the technical side doesn't make up for like other things that are done poorly in the movie, then it's just
yeah.
a full on like cuz yeah, you don't want to watch
Yeah,
the movie
because
then.
you're looking at it and you're coming to it, and this is one of the reasons I love talking to you about this stuff, is you're coming at it from your own like filmmaker perspective, right? You, what you've done and
Yeah,
what
for
you
sure.
see. And I'm a fly on the wall with all that stuff, but it's a thing that just allows me to try to go. I often view like movies and games as a roller coaster, where this might not be the best roller coaster. It might be an old woody, like
Oh, those are the
wooden,
best
like
ones. They hurt you.
shakes. They hurt you, but like, but I'm going to enjoy this ride as much as I can. And unless you like offend me or do something that just like makes me personally angry, I'm going to try to do what I can to enjoy you. And
Well, that's what Feast 2 and 3 do. They literally try to offend you.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's almost the same thing as like they took Human Centipede, which was offensive in the first place, and then
Yeah.
like oh, this wasn't offensive enough. We need to put like 7 people butt to asshole to mouth, and then 100 people. It's the same
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Where it's people trying to push limits. So
I
art
feel
is
like
art, man, and
horror and metal and like metalcore and all that stuff are all just trying to one up and be more heavy or more,
yeah,
like, oh, the
yeah,
death count has to be more. There's got to be more.
yeah.
We used
More,
18
yeah.
million gallons of blood in the
I mean,
filming of this movie, and that's the tagline on the poster, bigger than the fuck.
yeah.
It's just like, who
Yeah.
fucking cares, man?
But you have to think about it, man. Like you were talking about it before, like the lack of what is perceived as payoff for deaths in this Black Christmas, and I'm pulling it back around so we can end up, but like it that affected your experience for this movie, right?
Yes.
And so it's a it's a
Why you gotta
what
leave
we've
me
been
with blue
exposed,
balls the entire fucking time, man?
and yeah, exactly. So how much of that is just our desensitization to our content, and
I think that's
what
exactly what is
yeah.
my issue, to be
And
honest.
so it's you go a lot of this is it's a slope that goes up and happens, but a lot of that's because if you don't do that stuff, people are going to be bored. So I mean, you watching this movie now, it's like you hold this back to your 35 other years of watching horror movies, and and
Well, then you
because
put
of
it
the
up against
lack
like
of
what
what
we just saw, Freaky. There's not a
yeah
big kill count, or like they
yeah
don't show all of the stuff, but then when they do, the payoff is fucking massive in
yeah
those ones. And again, the Foley's really good, but like that's just a package deal that
yeah
I'm like, wow, like that
yeah
is a professional. Like it is so crispy clean, and like they know. I don't know, like that whole package, that movie, they know what they're doing, and they're doing it very well. That whole team,
yeah
everyone that put that shit together.
yeah. By the way, this movie we're watching, I'm pulling it up on IMDb as we're finishing up. The movie is called Dial Code Santa Claus, and then I see Game Over, and then on Shudder it's called Deadly Games.
Oh,
So
Game Over
if any of
1990.
those things are apparent, all those things add up. So
Whoa, what
that
is
will be
that
next week.
poster?
Yeah, it looks Japanese almost, like
Yeah,
it's
he's
like an
got like a
80s
samurai
Japanese
sword and
poster.
there's like a teddy bear
So
by his foot.
yeah. So everybody, Josh, thanks for hanging out, dude. This is always a blast, and it's one of my highlights of the week every week.
Hell
So,
yeah, me too, dude.
um, all our content is on murdermoose.com.
And it's up to
Josh is
wait. Is that the freaking old guy? No way. It's gotta be. I swear that's the like grandpa from the last movie we just watched.
we're gonna have an interesting talk on Sunday night. So, um, and Josh is Josh WRB on Twitter. I'm Rod_Johnson on Twitter. But go see our stuff on the murdermoose.com. Come join our Discord, all that stuff. We are part of the Slashing Cast Network, so just check out the other shows on our podcast network. And I think that's about it, man. So until we start talking about Home Alone Santa Claus, we're done for now, man.
Hell
So
yeah.
anything else?
Talk to you later, buddy.
Okay, buddy. I love you, and I will talk to you next week.
Bye.
Peace.